an accent, a very Mexican accent, apparently, I've heard. I think it's really hard, especially when people are like, oh, try to do an American accent. And I'm like, isn't that what I've already been doing? And apparently not so. I mean, I'm very proud of not being American. So I think the fact that they notice is important to me. I feel like being Mexican is a huge part of my identity. And having an accent reflects that. I am not from here. Oh, definitely. I believe there is a hierarchy. It is so funny because recently I was watching a documentary called Paris is Burning, and I was looking at the whole ball gay culture in the village back in the 80s. And you have these people of color who come out in the gay community. And the thing is, they were defining the word real, and they were saying, to be real means to be able to pass. So if you are femme, you can pass as a woman and not sound ghetto, not sound traditionally what people would say, not sound black. Now, if you could look like what was on the cover of the magazines back in the 80s, or in a Dynasty or a Dallas, and if you could sound, if that femme boy could sound like Christy Brinkley, or Joan Collins, or Linda Evans, then that was real. And so that just said to me that, yeah, okay, there is a hierarchy in accents and languages, because clearly somebody is putting the way that Joan Collins as Alexis spoke, the way she spoke in Dynasty, way up there on the language scale, and more than your average girl at the checkout counter in a Rite Aid in Harlem, you know, and I've noticed that. Well, I have to say that I'm terribly lucky that anytime I speak, people fawn all over me. Well, yes, everyone is really excited about the fact that I have an English accent. It's generally a well-spoken accent, so people seem to like that. But, however, the accent coming from me is rather baffling, because racially, I think I'm indiscriminate. People look at me and they're really confused. I don't feel like I look like any particular thing. So I've been mistaken for Latina. I've also been mistaken for Middle Eastern. I'm actually ethnically Pakistani. And then, well, I open my mouth and there's this well-spoken British accent that comes out. And people just get really confused. I think that's why the question comes more intensely. Where are you from? And I said, well, I'm English. I'm born and bred in England. And they're like, no, but where are you from? Really? And I feel like they're listening for that hint, for the accent to tell them my ethnicity. And they just don't get it from my voice. And it confuses the hell out of them, which, well, I find amusing because I don't think they should be judging me. So, I saw this movie, A Walk in the Clouds, and one of the things the man on that movie says is that don't think that because I talk with an accent, that I think with an accent. And I think that people sometimes forget that, and that sometimes because you have an accent, you don't have the same level of critical or higher-order thinking that they have. Also, I think, you know, it's that there's a part of you that's afraid because people judge you the moment that they come across your accent. The moment that a certain word comes out, like the wrong way, or that they don't understand you, then it's like, wait, you're not from here. You are the other. I do have an accent. I have my accent. I have Delia accent. I am an educator, and I was teaching in a school in New York, and one of the students started making fun of my accent in order to entertain the other students in the class. And at first, I just, you know, I went along with it, and I tried to ignore it. And then it opened up an opportunity for us to have a discussion about insider, outsider, and why he felt it was entertaining to make fun of my accent, when it happened to be, actually, a class of students of color. It was a very good way to introduce this conversation. In a country made of unnatural borders and too many immigrants taking your orders, the pureness of the colonizer's language is obsolete. I've been told I talk white with not enough Latin heat, but the coloring of language doesn't really make sense for a girl who can trick and keep you in suspense with the switching and faking of many accents. But this piece ain't just acting, so think and begin to explore. Racism, capitalism, way at the core. Open up more than eyes, but ears, hearts, and minds, and feel our humanity. the life tie that binds. It is my great pleasure to introduce my dear friend and brother Emmanuel Candelario of the Peace Poets to close out this Accentism performance. Give it up for Emmanuel Candelario!
Yeah. So how many people are bilingual? By show of hands. Okay, okay. How many people were born speaking another language as their first language other than English? Okay. So this piece is for you. Sometimes my first tongue goes buck wild, forcing me to say disdain instead of disdain. Embarrassment follows. My first tongue excels at comedic timing, for it always presents itself at the crux of an important speech to certain persons, admission deans, executive directors, and students who are now replete with slanderous ammunition. My first tongue believes in comic relief to ease the tension, most especially when making first impressions. Hi, my name is Emmanuel. Name. Thanks for the interview. My first tongue bursts into the scene like an obscene racist saying, "You immigrant, this is not your country. English is not your first language, and yes, you do speak Spanish." My first tongue doesn't care about phonetics, pronunciation, and sound. It is a bully, and it is not afraid to push English around. It stretches my syllabic senses into split dimensions. I am the well-spoken poet extraordinaire with the sharpest pronunciation. But on occasion, I think in English, but speak in Spanish. I'm making English another language. For example, see, I was trying to tell a friend that he's picky. However, what came out of my mouth sounded more like, he peaky. I had the audacity to repeat myself. He peaky. A good laugh ensues at my first tongue, which I tried to hide deep inside, but that mofo's like Jekyll and Hyde, the Hulk and Frankenstein's bride. It could care less about my pride. But even at my most embarrassed, when I wish I was one of those creatures from Tremors, hiding deep within the earth's surface, I realize my first tongue has a purpose. It is a simple, specific, small seed. My tongue is the eulogy that my ancestors never received. It is the posthumous poem published by mispronunciation, because it is liberating to reclaim the language of oppressors. So every language mangling, sentence strangling, rough wrangling word is a victory observed. Way before Spanish, so if you think my first tongue is Espanol, you've got it wrong, senor. Da Cataino, un indio del rio. And although my language is all but lost to me, it still has thoughts of me. And some days you can hear it speaking the sun, celebrating at the tip of my tongue. Thank you.